G'day everyone, welcome to Tuesday Night Live, the show where we ask all the big questions, but we don't take ourselves terribly seriously. My name's Andrew Sennett, and joining me tonight and every week is my co-host and conversation partner, Ryan. Hey Ryan, how's it going?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not too foul. How's your week been?
Yeah, not too bad. I helped someone move this weekend, but otherwise It's been pretty chill. Second week back at uni, just figuring my life out.
Yeah. I want to share a story with you. I was trolling through my Facebook feed, as most of us do, and this weekend someone posted this story from almost a century ago in Australia about this kid, Lenny Guither, and I wonder if we can get the picture up of him for a second, Leslie. There we go. There's Lenny Guither and his horse, Ginger Mick. And the story of Lenny Guither is, this is 1932, right? He's 9 years old. His dad breaks his leg. He's in Gippsland in Victoria, which is southeast of Melbourne. His dad breaks his leg, and so he, with his horse, Ginger Mick, ploughs the fields and keeps the farm going while his dad's in hospital for a couple of months. And his parents are working out, well, how do they reward him? And this kid, Lenny, had avidly followed the building of the Sydney Harbour Bridge. And so his parents said, yep, you can go and watch the opening of the Sydney Harbour Bridge. And so what did he do? They packed a bag for him and his hat and a little water bottle, and he got on his horse and he rode alone 1,000 k's from southeast of Melbourne all the way to Sydney.
How old was he? He didn't look that old in that photo. How old was he?
He was 9. He was 9 years old, and he rode all the way to Sydney. And it's just this amazing story, and this story kind of built momentum. And towns would welcome him as he went through. When he went through Canberra, the Prime Minister had morning tea with him, and he got to Sydney, and the Premier, the Mayor of Sydney, Don Bradman, had a meeting with him, the kind of legendary cricketer, and signed a cricket ball for him. And then he got to go to the opening of the Sydney Harbour Bridge. So I reckon 10,000, I think there's a picture, Leslie, of 10,000 people welcoming him as he came into Sydney in Martin Place. Just an incredible story. 9 years old. Can you imagine that? 9 years old, alone, over 1,000 k's on a horse.
I'm pretty sure I was still figuring out how to cook toast at 9 years old.
Yeah, there was no way I was doing that at 9. I didn't start smoking until I was 11. That's another story. That's a story for another day. We'll tell that one another time. But I just found that incredible story of this kid who just did this thing. And who would do that today? Who would put their kids on a cross-country trip alone? I guess we put our kids on flights, don't we? But we get them supervised and all that sort of thing. This kid...
Like, I wasn't allowed to walk home from school until year 6, and even that was just like 3 k's.
Yeah. Well, this kid had to deal with bandits on the road, people who accosted him on the road. He had to deal with bushfires and all sorts of stuff on his trip.
Who is this kid?
I don't know. This should be a movie, I think, in Australia, this story of this legend kid. Apparently there's a statue of him and his horse in the town. Anyway, I thought that was a fun story to share.
That's so cool.
for the beginning.
Yeah, 9-year-olds are very different these days.
Yeah. We're going to get in the show, but if you're watching on YouTube, please like, subscribe, smash that notification bell, share, make a comment. All of that helps with the YouTube algorithm. And if you're tuning in through the Facebook community, welcome back. This show, as we always say every week, is about a conversation. And we would love to hear from you. We'd love to hear your comments, your questions, your thoughts about Jesus, God, the universe, and everything.
I reckon for now, type in what was your greatest achievement as a 9-year-old.
Yes. What was your greatest achievement as a 9-year-old? I was in 3rd grade. I remember my teacher reading us Roald Dahl books.
Yeah.
But enough of that. Let's get into the show. Okay, well, welcome back. So, Ryan, I've got a question for you.
Yep.
New Wiggles or old Wiggles? So, have we got the graphic, Leslie? New Wiggles or old Wiggles?
I tell you, I see the new Wiggles.
Yeah.
And there's just a part of it, there's like, the caveman part of me that just like clicks and I just get angry. You know what I mean?
The new Wiggles make you angry.
Yeah, I just, frustrated. No, it's old Wiggles. There is no competition, no question.
Right.
It's not allowed.
Okay. When you've got past commenting on what your greatest achievement as a 9-year-old was, perhaps you could vote New Wiggles or Old Wiggles. We would love to hear from you. What is it about the New Wiggles that really gets your goat, mate?
I don't think I can explain it. And look, people are in the comment also saying Old Wiggles. I don't think there's... Yeah, Laura Sennett says, anyone who says the New Wiggles, they smell bad, and I have to agree. They are, yeah. No,
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. I just, they're just not, they're not my Wiggles.
Right.
They're not the Wiggles that I know. They're foreigners. They're strangers. I don't know. I don't know how to put it. They're saying that they're the Wiggles, but they're not. They're imposters. That's the word.
Okay. I feel like I'm looking at the votes, and it's pretty much everyone's on old Wiggles. I don't know. Has anyone voted for new Wiggles?
Mac Hasty says that they're all right, but I'm going to assume he's joking.
Right. Yeah. That sounds like a joke.
Yeah.
This is really interesting because your generations, you're meant to be the most progressive generation ever, and yet you can't move on in the Wiggles. What's going on? Maybe you're all closet conservatives.
Maybe that's that. You don't want to say that too loudly though.
Right.
That would be. But I think you may be right. You might be onto something. Maybe we're not as progressive.
My greatest achievement is seeing the Wiggles live.
We can't even progress on new Wiggles.
You did hot potato.
Yeah.
Is it cold spaghetti?
Yeah, and mashed banana.
Mashed banana. You're a young dad now. You doing all the Wiggle stuff?
I went to the concerts.
So what do you do with your? Because you've got a 1-year-old. Is that right?
I do. Yes.
And so are you showing him new Wiggle stuff? What do you do? Because
the new Wiggles probably won't be allowed to be shown in my household.
Well, but that's what he's going to grow up with, isn't it?
Well, the big thing at the moment is Bluey.
Okay, right. So you're just kind of rejecting Wiggles and going for Bluey.
Yeah, like I think we just let them phase out.
Okay.
Or I just get the old VCRs out and show them the old Wiggles.
Yeah. Well, our theme tonight is new versus old, and so we'll keep collecting your votes. It looks like the conversation's humming along there.
That's all right. Kyle said something. He says that when your son watches them all day long, they become your Wiggles.
Right.
And I think you can.
I can't imagine it.
No, I'm gonna. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt, Kyle. But until that happens, yeah, you can.
Yep. Okay. Let's just keep it.
I'll get too angry if we keep talking about this.
Yeah, let's give it above board. So, okay, we're gonna move on into the show. But that's a bit of our theme tonight: new versus old. And why is it that we prefer the old to the new? But it's time for story time with Amelia. Take it away, Amelia.
Hey, I'm Amelia, and I'll be reading Luke's record of some of Jesus' most confusing parables about wineskins and patching up fabric, and it all starts with a question about his disciples, the name for his closest followers. Luke writes this: The people said to Jesus, John's disciples often fast and pray, and so do the disciples of the Pharisees, but yours go on eating and drinking. Jesus answered, Can you make the friends of the bridegroom fast while he is still with them? But the time will come when the bridegroom will be taken from them. In those days they will fast. He told them this parable. No one tears a piece out of a new garment to patch an old one, otherwise they will have torn the new garment, and the patch from the new will not match the old. And no one pours new wine into old wineskins, otherwise the new wine will burst the skins. The wine will run out, and the wineskins will be ruined. No, new wine must be poured into new wineskins. And no one after drinking the old wine wants the new, for they say, the old is better.
Thanks, Amelia, you absolute champion.
Now, Seno, I've got to ask this.
Yep.
This is a weird story in the sense of, a lot of Christians that I know always have questions about this. To some degree I get it. They're asking why are they eating when everyone else is not eating. I get that, when the groom's here, you celebrate. But then he starts talking about wineskins.
Yeah.
And then things just go out the window for me, at least.
Okay.
Can you just give me a quick rundown of what is going on?
Well, I'm not sure what your question is.
What's going on with the wineskins? Okay,
do you know what a wineskin is?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, it's the ancient equivalent of a goon bag. And it's made of leather. They say Australians invented cask wine, but that's not strictly true. I think in the ancient world they had cask wine nailed down because they used to hold wine in skins, not in bottles. And the skins were made of, I think, of leather. And the issue with skins is what wine you put in and when. And so if you put new wine into old wineskins, it'll burst. Is that right? It's new wine into old wineskins, you burst them? I can't quite remember the story goes now.
Yeah.
And so the issue is the swelling of the skins and stretching the skins to do with the wine. And you can't do it the wrong way around, or you actually wreck everything.
But Jesus isn't giving them, a piece of advice on how to store their wine. Right?
No. He's being Jesus. He's being a bit obtuse, isn't he? He's kind of he always does this. He tells a story rather than just making a bald statement. Yeah.
So what's he getting at?
Well, okay. So I think he's actually sharing a couple of really obvious and true pieces of wisdom. I think there are some fairly obvious things here. And the first thing is that often the new thing is not compatible with the old. That's the basic point he's making, that new and old aren't compatible. And so you can't just smoothly knit new and old together. It's disruptive, It's like it's new and old Star Trek. It doesn't always work, but you ask old people about how the new stuff fits with them, and it doesn't quite fit. You ask people how they tolerate changes in science. Newtonian physics versus Einsteinian physics, that sort of thing. I knew you'd get that one.
Yeah. Old phone versus new phone maybe is a more modern one.
Well, perhaps Apple and Android, that sort of thing, or whatever it is. But there's a difference that is just disruptive. The new and the old are not compatible with each other, and that I think you see that happening today, culturally speaking. The new culture, what people often call woke culture, progressive culture, is just not compatible with old culture. And so, what have we seen this week? We've seen Dr. Zeus has been cancelled. Pepe Le Pew has been cancelled. These are books and cartoons I watched as a kid that were entirely fine and unobjectionable when I was a kid, but now all of a sudden they're on the outer, they're on the nose, and we have to get rid of them. And so all these kind of cartoons now are being cancelled because they don't fit. And so there's a disruption. There's not new and old aren't compatible. Right. And so that's the first thing, that quite often new things don't just kind of smoothly come in and continue things on. Often a new thing completely disrupts the picture and changes things, and that it just doesn't go with the old. So that's, I think, the first point Jesus is making. And I think the second point he's making really clearly is that we tend to prefer the old. We prefer old wiggles.
Yeah, I'm feeling that. I think I'm understanding that.
When the disruptive new thing comes along, we don't like it. We like our tradition, we like our pattern, and we resist the new until we're completely left behind, or until there's this crisis moment where we need to adopt the new tech or the new thing or the new wiggles. Like now you've had a son and all of a sudden you're confronted with the choice, is he going to have no wiggles at all or new wiggles?
Do you think that's just because people are used to what they know?
Yeah, I think it is. Absolutely, yeah.
Something new.
Yeah. One of the things I've noticed...
Isn't that a saying? An old dog can't teach an old dog new tricks?
Well, it's really funny you should say that, because I was just going to say that I've been working with uni students for 20 years. I'm in my 50s, and I think they're way more conservative than me. They are much more traditionalist than I am.
Please elaborate on that.
I'm quite happy to contemplate change and to change things around. Uni students on the whole tend to be resistant to change. They tend to like things to be the same because they're comfortable with that, and they're a bit frightened of things changing.
Kyle asks, if the new and old can't mix, why are we doing the show together?
Because you're an old man in a young man's body, Ryan, maybe.
Is that right? You're not a young man in an old man's body?
I think I pretty much am. When I had my formal at the HSC, my chemistry teacher came up to me. He said, "Senate," he said, "you're immature, but that's good. That's good. Keep that." And so I've tried to follow that advice.
You've lived that out
for the last 30-odd years. Yeah,
righto. We've got another. Ben asks, is this old versus new the real reading behind older siblings versus younger siblings rivalry?
Well, I can't comment on that, mate. Okay. I'm not going there. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll move on. Maybe you can ask that later on.
Yeah. Don't ask me who my favourite is.
So tell me then, what is Jesus? Why is Jesus bringing this up again? He's not telling us a piece of advice about how to store your wine. He's also not. He's also. But I think what you're getting at, he's not just saying, "Hey, we really struggle with being with new ideas."
Yeah.
So why is he bringing that up?
I think he brings it up because of the conversation they've had earlier on about the things he and his disciples are doing versus the thing that the traditionalists are doing. So they're doing all new things. They're breaking the rules. They're not following the traditions, the religious traditions that are around them. And so there's this question. And so he tells a story about the bridegroom and why would people mourn when the bridegroom's around, that sort of thing. So why follow the old religious practices when the new thing has come? And so the issue here is about old and new religion. And it's about how we understand our connection with God, with our meaning and purpose. And so what is religion? What do we mean by that word here? Well, religion is actually how you live out what you think is true. What you do that comes from what you believe to be true. That tends to be your religion. So religion isn't kind of going to church every Sunday unless that's what you believe you ought to do.
So are you talking like in the grand scheme of things, or like what you think about specific topics?
Well, religious activity could be giving alms to the poor. It could be saying prayers. It could be all that sort of thing. But it's actions you take. Religion tends to be the outward actions you take based on the inward beliefs that you have.
Okay.
And in that sense, everybody's religious. Everyone.
Right.
It doesn't matter.
Is it in terms of how you see the world, or?
Well, it's what you believe to be true.
Right. So, like, I believe gravity exists. So so the fact that I decide to throw a ball, is that what you're getting at? Like,
No. Good question. No, I think it's actually what you believe about, I guess, ultimate reality. So it's not so much whether you believe the bus timetable, that sort of thing. Your religion's more about how you behave ethically based on what you believe you are and what your purpose is. Yeah, it's more those ultimate questions.
Okay. Right.
What are you? What are you for?
So where you fit in the world.
How you fit in the world? What's your purpose in life? What sort of thing? What do you see about the future? What do you believe about the future? That sort of thing. Those things determine how you act, and that's why I say that everyone is religious. Everyone acts on what they believe about ultimate reality. We may believe very different things. Some people, you may believe that there's a God and that God actually is involved and interested in who we are, and so how we live in the world is determined by what we know about Him. Or you may believe that none of that. You may believe that the world has no meaning or purpose outside of me, but my life is about me. My meaning and purpose is tied up with who I am. But that then will determine how you act and what you believe about right and wrong. Right. And in that sense, everybody is religious.
Yeah, so it feels like you're using religious in a bigger, almost more abstract sense, rather than like religion being Christianity or Hinduism.
Yes. In that sense, religion is just a word that describes, I guess, our moral actions in the world. But I think the point that Jesus is trying to make is that clash when we're confronted with something different. And so everyone has their own ideas about ultimate reality, right and wrong, those sort of things. And those ideas tend to be incompatible with other ideas, with outside ideas. This is why crossing cultures can be so traumatic for people. It can be a wonderful thing where you see different cultures and different ways people act, but it can also be traumatic for people.
That's culture shock.
Yeah, culture shock. It's like a kid going to school for the first time. My family always does things this way, and they go to school and other families do things different ways, and it's like, crisis time. And I think that new religion, an outside idea that challenges our ideas, always brings with it a crisis, a moment of crisis.
Right. And so is Jesus he's comparing a new way of thinking from an old way of thinking?
Yeah, absolutely
right.
he is. Yeah.
What is the old way of thinking?
Well, for the people in front of him, it's traditionalism. People have actually kind of developed this this kind of bizarre traditional form of religion kind of based around the Jewish faith. And it's become, over time, it's become quite strange and quite different. Right. And Jesus has come and he's saying there is, he's come with something new and different.
In what way would you say it was strange?
I think it'd be alien to people who were Jewish before them. It's kind of developed over time and become something new and different. It's kind of like...
Is it because of all the laws that they've kind of imposed on people? Or,
all sorts of things like that, I think. Okay. Yeah. It's like how churches have developed traditions over thousands of years, and we look at them and go, that's really weird. And it's just because those traditions have kind of developed over time. And Jesus comes to challenge that. He comes with something very different.
Yeah, because it sounds like he's the one. Is he the one bringing the new way of thinking?
Yeah, he is. Right, very much so. He's saying your tradition is actually wrong. It's bad. It doesn't get you to God. It doesn't work.
Which is weird because like I tend to think of Jesus as, I don't know, affirming.
Yeah.
If that makes
Yeah.
Like he wants to say like that. Well, he does love the people he talks to.
Yeah.
But he can also not affirm their way of thinking or seeing the world.
Yeah. We tend to think loving people is affirming everything about them. That's so not Jesus. And so he does love people around him, but he does not affirm everything they think and everything they do. And he's not come to be affirming. I think, and I think that's probably a big issue for us, because we think if we do bother to think about God, as Australians, we often think that God affirms us. You know, Jesus is with us. You know, it's that Crocodile Dundee kind of idea. Me and God, we'd be mates. And, you know, if we bother to think about God, if we bother to wonder about God, we tend to think God would affirm us. God would think we're okay. And Jesus just comes and, you know, just knocks that all over.
Yeah. So, and which is particularly striking because he's saying this to the like religious people of that time, or the hardcore guys.
And so he does it to them, but in a sense he does it to us as well. He's come to confront all of our religion, all of our ideas about ultimate reality, all of the ways we think our life should work, what it means to be moral or what it means to act well and to live well. Yeah. And he's going, it's all wrong. And so he's just come to set the cat amongst the pigeons for us.
Sorry, we got a question from Laura.
Yep.
She says, different cultures must then have different perspectives of religion.
Yep.
So could you explain a hypothetical situation that your culture, traditionalism clashes with the Bible? I think, how do you explain the different perspectives of religion? How do they do, like when they do clash?
Yes, well, I think with Australians, I think there are some ideas in Australian culture that actually, I think, go well, and actually, the Bible would actually say these are good traditions. You know, I think that idea of a fair go, that idea of everyone being on the same level, that kind of basic egalitarianism, I think the Bible would go, well, God does treat people the same. God does think people are on the same level. And it's actually good to give people a fair go and not to just hold people back, that sort of thing. But I think there are elements of the Australian religion, if you like, or Australianism that are anathema. Australians can be really critical people. You know, you look at the way we treat our mates. We save our worst burns and our worst insults for our closest friends. I can't even say what the normal Australian word is for their friends, their closest mates, on YouTube, because the video would get censored. So, you know, that's what we're like. And I don't think that's actually a great facet of Australian culture, even though we laugh at it and we know that. I know that I'm someone's friend when they start insulting me. And, you know, that's that classic Australian thing. If I'm insulting you, my friend, if I don't like you, I just won't say anything. I'll be really polite.
Okay. Because this is coming from the Pharisees talking about, so fasting was one of the laws, I imagine.
Yep.
And so they're going, well, why aren't you, are they asking why aren't you following the law?
Well, they're asking, why don't you follow our traditions?
Right, okay.
Fasting wasn't part of the law. Fasting is actually a tradition.
Yeah, right.
And so, no, it's actually not one of the things God actually asked his people to do. It's an extra thing, an extra tradition, a religion that they've added on. And I think this raises that issue, because we think that God wants us to do religious things. We think that God's impressed if we go to church or to mosque or whatever, if we burn candles or if we do good works, that God's impressed with us, that those are the things that God wants. And non-religious people have their own version of that. We have groups we get into. We'll throw money at some charity every now and then, at the salvos or whatever, and we'll do a nice thing for our neighbour, and we think we're all right because that's what God wants. We think God's
Sorry, Kelly's got a question kind of about that.
Yep.
She says, surely there was an incentive to change to Jesus' rules because the Old Testament laws were just not fun. Were Pharisees resistant because old laws gave them power, because they...
No, I actually think, I'd love to talk about this. We're actually going to have a bit of a show one week in the not too distant future, hopefully, on what we call the law of the Old Testament, the Ten Commandments. I actually don't think they're terribly unattractive. I think that the Ten Commandments themselves are powerfully attractive things. They're not so bad. So I don't know that that's the issue, the thing that's driving things. As a matter of fact, I think the issue here is actually they're not following the commandments. They're actually following their own traditions. And Jesus criticises them for that as well. And what Jesus does is he comes and challenges all of our religious ideas, all the things that we imagine ourselves that God's impressed by. He just comes and challenges them, and I think that's why people find Jesus so difficult.
Because you can. It's easy to talk about that in terms of people who would call themselves religious.
Yeah.
But when you talk about it using the language of like traditions or that kind of habits or whatever you want to call it, that will include what we would call non-religious people.
I think if Jesus came today, he would critique the religious people for sure. He'd smash church folks, but he would also be critical of traditions, the tradition of mateship and the way it's gone and what it does to people. He'd be critical of so many things that we think are good,
So people these days may not go to church, let's say, or burn the right candles, or whatever it is, but they'll do something else.
Yeah. So when Jesus comes and tells you that you can never be good enough for God, doesn't matter what you do, doesn't matter how hard you work, doesn't matter what charities you give to, doesn't matter how many old ladies you help across the road, you can't be good enough for God. We don't like hearing that.
That's pretty.
Like if I every day if I told you can't be good enough, you can't be good enough.
That's not how we tend to talk.
We think we can do it, don't we? We think we're not so bad and we can fix things and it'll be okay.
That's positive psychology, positive
thinking.
Kind of
and so Jesus really does throw the cat amongst the pigeons, and he does it for everyone. So he does it for these religious people back then. And I think when we look at these people and we look at the kind of stoush they have with Jesus, and we're going to see it unfold in other episodes, we kind of go, yeah, go Jesus, we're on Jesus' side. But the problem is it turns around, then he kind of whacks us with a wet fish as well. He has a
so you don't think he's saying like you're just doing it wrong. You think he's saying that you just can't do it at all.
Well, I think ultimately he's saying all of your religion is not right. Is not good.
Okay. And
it's a tradition that won't take you to God. It'll take you away from God. And so I think this whole thing with these people about new versus old here, it also applies to us. He's having a dig at us as well. All those things that you cherish about yourself and about your life and all the things you think about what a moral or good life is. He
things that I do that make me feel like I'm a good person.
Or that if you think that God's impressed by that, if you think that will get you to God, Jesus wants to say, yeah, you got another thing coming. Right. So I don't think he's saying don't be a good person. I'm not sure that's the point he's trying to make. I think he's trying to say your ideas about how you get right with God, your ideas about how you perform religion in order to impress God, they don't impress God as much as you think. They're not what God is looking for. And so if you keep doing that, you're not going to end up anywhere good. And I think this is why people find Jesus so hard. On the whole, people tend to like Jesus, but it's because they don't kind of get to know him. And they don't listen to him when he says this kind of stuff. Because this stuff is really confronting. There's a reason that people didn't like Jesus. There's a reason people killed him. And it's because he says the hard things to us. He really confronts us at the depths of our being and who we are. Jesus frightens us and he bewilders us and he enrages us. And in the end, we can't even see what he's saying because it's like, I don't want that. And there is a barrier, I think, between us and God in that sense. There's a barrier that prevents us from having an encounter with God that might be life-changing and transforming and good. And this is it. It's actually this thing we have with Jesus that we can't accept what he says about our cherished view of ourselves and our lives. Yeah.
So that's what you'd say is the old way. That's the old wineskin, to go back to his metaphor.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say is the new wineskin?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the new wineskin is what he's come to do. That he has come to actually bring us to God. He's come to actually say, my way is the way, and it's my way or the highway. He's actually trying to say that he has come to give you something that brings you to God. And what you're doing, your religion, your cherished beliefs about yourself will not work. And if you want to have an encounter with God, if you actually want to have a relationship with God, you need to go my way. And his way is about him dying in our place and him rising from the dead. And actually seeing that Jesus is the king of everything. So it's pretty confronting, I think. Yeah.
I feel like that's really hard to get over.
Yeah.
Or to even to think about.
Yeah, and so I think that's probably the this is kind of hard because it's criticising Australian icons like Crocodile Dundee, but Jesus has come to challenge and confront our comfort and self-assurance. He's not come to make us feel better about ourselves, and that's kind of like, that hurts.
Yeah, but this is important, right? Because if we think that we're right with God, if we think we're impressing God and we're not, it's good to know that, right?
Well, it would be. You do need to confront that, I think. Yes, and that's the first step for Jesus in actually seeing who he is, and getting to know him. He's actually confronting who we are and what we think, and Jesus, stepping straight up into our face and saying, "Yeah, that's wrong. It's just you're just wrong, mate."
Being told you're wrong's never good.
No, it hurts. I don't like it. And so this is one of the things I find confronting personally about Jesus. I don't like this. I'm comfortable with life when it just goes along smoothly the way I want and the way I like. And to have someone step in and say, no, you're wrong about it all, and you need to completely reorient things. You need to actually see things my way. I don't like it. It's hard to come at. And you got to work out, well, how do I then address that? How do I work that out?
I feel like I'm the same. Like I struggle with feedback.
Really? I haven't noticed that the last few weeks.
Yeah, no,
have you been bullied at work recently?
People talk about my Apple eating.
your Apple habits.
But how in terms of this, how do you get past it?
I'm not completely certain, but I think the way I got past it was to confront Jesus as he truly was. That is, you actually have to be willing to see Jesus for who he says he is, not for who I imagine him to be. And I think that's probably the first big step to get past it, is to understand that I will be blind to the new things. I will be resistant to them. I will prefer my things, and then you actually need then to go, okay, I need to stop and set myself and go, well, I'll just, in a sense, be open. I'll go, okay, God, who is Jesus? Then show me. What do you think? And you need to be willing to do that, which is, I think, hard. It's hard for us to do.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good point to stop and have a break. We're going to move into toilet break now, and then after that, we're going to have our mailbag time where we're going to answer as many questions as we can that have been asked and we haven't got to yet. So if you've got questions, please write them in using the hashtag mailbag, and we'll go to toilet break. Hi, welcome back. All right, time for mailbag. We're going to start with our first question. Seno, what does your shirt actually say? What's going on?
Sorry. It says, "This is how I roll." I just thought it fit with the theme of tonight. It's just cute little pandas rolling.
Fair enough. Okay.
Yeah.
I can dig that. Nice, cute little panda doing its thing. All right. Yeah. Do we have our next question ready? Okay. Do you like pandas, Seno? Is that why you got the shirt? Or do you think
not
it's
particularly.
just funny? Is this
Pandas
your,
are ratty.
what I'm asking? Is this your kind of humour?
Vague, random, I guess you could say. It is my kind of humour, in a sense.
Sure. Okay. I think we've got the next question up.
Yep.
So Stanley asks, should it be considered disrespectful if we don't follow tradition made by man?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it depends, doesn't it? Because you tend to follow the traditions of the culture around you. You know, we just tend to follow ours, but when you go to a different culture, you what do they say? What are that sayings? When in Rome, do as the Romans do.
Yeah.
You tend to adapt yourself to other cultures in order to be respectful. Yeah, and so I think it is seen as disrespectful not to follow cultures, generally speaking, and it's why oftentimes Christians tend to stick out and they tend to be objectionable. Because Christian people, because they bow down to Jesus, because they follow what he says, that can sometimes clash with their culture. And so Christians tend to be countercultural, whichever the culture they're in.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Cool. There's a whole bunch of questions, so we'll keep going. But should we look at changes in church traditions today carefully?
Yes. I'm not quite sure where this question's going, but
like lots of different like churches, not just cultures, but churches and denominations, they have their own kinds of traditions.
Traditions aren't necessarily bad just because they're traditions. Sometimes traditions are good. Sometimes traditions, so the Anzac tradition's been a great unifying tradition in Australia over the last century. Just because something is or becomes a tradition doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. But it depends on where the tradition goes and what it's doing. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I can go with that. Next question is from Eliza. She says, we went to the wrong one. Sorry. Technical issues. We'll get there.
Eliza.
She says, I think our culture believes that people are justified by death, that everyone who has died is in heaven. Where do we get this idea from, and do other cultures think this as well?
I think generally speaking, people believe this because they want to hope or think the best of their loved ones. If you care about someone, you don't want to think of them in some bad place. You don't even want to think of them rotting away. So even often non-religious people will talk vaguely about someone being up there or looking down on us because we want good things for them, I guess. We'd like to think things are good for them. So I think that's really where that idea comes from. It tends to happen vaguely in most cultures, and then it can get a religious kind of garment on top of it.
Yeah, and that's hard to, like, because death is very sad. It's hard to, like, you want to have some form of comfort.
Yes,
and I can understand that.
Absolutely, you can. I get why it is. I get why you tend to say eulogies at funerals. You don't get at a funeral and just no one's brutally honest at a funeral. Generally speaking, you don't say the bad things. You say the good things. That's why it's called a eulogy, because eulogy means good, logos word, good word. You say the good things. Yeah.
All right. The next question, I believe, is from Mac. It's the one that came up before. If the New Testament shuts down the idea that traditions and extra bits are what pleases God, why do denominations put emphasis on doing them? And Mac has the example of the Catholic Church, but I know they're not the only one.
Yeah. Look, I think because traditions are human, I think this will be at the heart of a few of the questions. Traditions are human. This is what we do. If you get more than 3 people around at one time, and if they hang out for more than a week, they'll develop traditions. Friend groups develop traditions, don't they? There's a way our friend group does. There's a particular restaurant we hang out at. There's a particular game we play. And the more people who gather, the more traditional you tend to get. It's human. Tradition is human.
Is it like an identity thing that's going on? Like this is who I am, or this is who we are. This is what we do.
It could be. Yes, traditions tend to identify or mark us out, but they also unify us. They draw us together. We do these things together, and so it's not. This is what human beings are like, and I think that's why traditions develop, and it's why they develop in a secular way in our culture, but also why they develop inside churches, because people are people wherever they are, as Dr. Zeus would say. Oh no, he's cancelled now.
But we won't go there.
Let's not go there. But I think that's why, because we naturally develop traditions. Traditions themselves, the idea of tradition itself isn't bad. As a matter of fact, the Christian faith, one of the words for the Christian faith is the tradition. This is the tradition from God. And I think that's the thing Jesus is kind of not just questioning but challenging about us, is that when we develop traditions that actually draw us away from God, or actually don't actually take us towards God.
Yeah, because Jesus doesn't say, I'm getting rid of traditions. He said,
No.
I'm getting rid of the old ones and putting new ones in.
Yeah, and where there are traditions in human cultures that are good, Jesus, I think, affirms them. He's quite fine with things that are healthy and good traditions. Traditions about the way we treat one another, the way we treat strangers. I think the hospitality tradition is a fantastic tradition. And it's one of those things that we could actually take on from other cultures which do it so much better than we do. Yeah.
All right. Next question is from Kyle. Why do so many religions rely on works? Kyle personally doesn't like the idea that his salvation is being in his own hands.
Yeah. I think it's not so many, Kyle. I think it's all. All religions rely on works, because all religions want to say that I'm not so bad and I can fix it myself. That's the message of most religions, is that you are not so bad and you can fix it yourself. And what Jesus comes to tell us is you are worse than you think and you can't fix it yourself, which is why it upends everything that we believe.
So I think
why
Kyle's
we like
kind
that?
of in the minority where he says he doesn't like the idea of the salvation being in his hands. Most people want that.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Most people want that. I think the thing most people find objectionable about Christianity is the word that Christians love the most, which is that word grace, which means that God is kind to us and is merciful to us. Despite who we are. We don't like the idea that we need God's kindness, that we need somebody else to intervene for us. And so that word that most Christian people find is at the heart of their belief and their faith. Most non-religious people, it's the word they hate the most. Yeah. Because we don't like to be told we're worse than we think and we can't fix it ourselves.
Yeah, and that's what we've been saying tonight, right? That's the thing we have to try and figure out if we can get over.
And so these religious people Jesus was confronting in this story are people who think that if we take these religious actions, we're good with God. If we wash our hands in a particular way, if we follow these traditions, if we fast at these times, then we're right with God and we're better than everybody else. And we're more likely to get into heaven, if you like. And Jesus says, nah. I think, just by the way, if that expression had been around, Jesus would have used it a lot. Yeah, nah.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, nah.
Prob's not. Totes not.
Yeah.
All right, I think we've only got time for one more question.
Sure.
So this will be the last one. It's from Monia. Sorry, I'll get there. The saying, better to ask permission than forgiveness. Would you think that would work with God, or should we keep asking for forgiveness?
I think that's actually the wrong way around. I think it's better to ask forgiveness than permission. The idea is just act and say sorry later. It's easier to ask someone. It's easier to apologise and go, oh, "Whoops, got that wrong."
And you get to do what you've done.
So the idea behind that saying is that it's people tend to say no. No's an easier word to say than yes. Kids tend to learn the word no first, and yes comes later.
I can testify.
And so if you ask someone a question, the kids learn this right off the bat. Just by the way, it's one of the first things you learn is don't ask your parents, because they'll say no. That's the thing you most often say is no. And so the thought behind that saying is that just do it. It's easier to ask forgiveness than to ask permission, because usually the people will say no, whereas if you do it, you might get away with it. But would that work with God? Yeah, no. But I think the idea of asking for forgiveness is at the heart of the Christian faith. So maybe yes. Yeah.
Great. Well, I think that's all we have time for
Sure.
But yes. Take it away, Sam.
We'll see. Well, look, thanks very much for joining us tonight on the show for that rambling discussion of wine and wineskins and goon bags and the old and new wiggles. Please remember to like, subscribe, click notifications for all that sort of stuff. It really does make a difference. Keep the questions and comments coming in. Next week, we have something special for you. A few times this year, we're going to take a break from our normal pattern, and instead we're going to spend some time getting to know some of the characters other than Jesus who fill the pages of the Bible. Who were they as people? How do we connect with them across time and space? What relevance do their lives, lived thousands of years ago, have to do with us here and now? What does it mean that we're all humans together? Well, next week we're going to meet probably the most famous and revered woman in history, Mary, the mother of Jesus. Who was she? What drove her? What do we have in common with her? So get all your questions and comments about Mary going, and we'll see you next week.